Thank you, everybody. Can you see me, hear me, see the slides? I mean, you don't have to see me.
We can see the slides.
The most important part is that you can see my oysters. Am I right? Who knows me, that they know that I just, this is something that I used to live in Squantum, and I still come 6 months in Boston and in the United States. This is my home, but right now I'm back home in Croatia teaching biomimicry and coastal systems. We have also oysters, but they're different species. And we all know what the problem is, and that's why we are here. We know what the problem is. We have it in every single estuary. And my professor actually started this project with a dead fish sign, and my students and I started the Green Harbors project to change the dead fish sign into the alive, happy Nemo fish sign. And that's something that is close to my heart, because for 12 years that I've been living in Boston and working at UMass Boston, I had an opportunity to work with a lot of local communities, worked with all three watersheds from Neponset, Charles, and Mystic, and of course befriended with oysters that totally disappeared from this area. And I will show you just a little tiny story how my students and I and local community are trying to bring them back. And not only alone, because oysters cannot survive without salt marshes, other shellfish species, and eelgrass beds. It's an amazing feedback loop that we are trying to understand between those three keystone coastal habitats. And we cannot restore them separately. We need to bring them together back. And with biomimicry, which is the process of learning from nature, we are trying to understand how this collaboration is working, how we can bring those systems back in urban settings, because every single estuary is degraded by industrialization and our industrial activities. And how can we now learn from the systems to improve the conditions, establish not just the habitats that are missing, but also, envision something that we try to envision in biomimicry and research, interdisciplinary research, that we have to start seeing cities as our ecosystems and neighborhoods as our habitats, and buildings as species and organisms. And also on a smaller scale, micro and nano scale, how can we biomimic natural systems and species to create conditions conducive to life, not just for humans, but also for every single species. And we can do this. We have the knowledge. We know exactly what we are missing. We know exactly what we degraded, and how each system contributes to improving the water quality, the air quality, the biological diversity. How can we actually restore those systems and minimize impact, and even maybe stop and reverse climate change and pollution, if we just basically work with nature? So those are the three keystone habitats that we are missing, and we are trying to restore in Boston Harbor. And Boston Harbor has a great opportunity right now to work and learn from those systems and bring them back, in order not just to improve the shoreline and protect the erosion and from sea level rise, but also to improve the conditions, the health that is degraded, even though we've done a lot with our wastewater treatment systems, but there's much more to do. And our human-built environment, just imagine if we have a harbor walk that can also not only support biological diversities, but can filter water and improve the water quality, that can also sequester carbon and also nitrogen. And the whole process of bioremediation is important for the urban settings, and we know how to do that. So those are the three systems and habitats that we need to bring into our living shorelines. And this is one area as a biomimicry living labs that we basically designed with nature, working with nature, following the signs where the oysters would like to thrive. We always try to, tell them where they should live, but we went different. We basically looked and observed for a long time what's going on in Boston Harbor the water quality is getting better after a lot of improvements in our built environment. And this is the area where we started placing native oysters of Chrysostora virginica in a culvert in Seven Hill Cove and a Patton Cove. You can see through this cove a background is actually with a salt marsh. So there is some kind of a link that we basically organically created here. And just imagine how many culverts do we have in urban harbors. And right now we have about 250,000 native oysters in this area. We are hoping that this can take another step with the local communities, and also that improvement of water quality and biological diversity can show that this is the way how we should listen to those signs. And this was established by basically collecting individual oysters and putting them together. And then at some point when we were having around 5,000 or 6,000 oysters, they were so happy that they are finally together, not alone in the middle of nowhere, and they start spawning. So this is something that makes sense. Doesn't it make sense? So we created some kind of hotspot of oyster habitat that is actually spreading oysters in other areas. This is the last slide that I wanted to leave because I know I have only 10 minutes of presentation. You have a long conversation, and I'm hoping to stay with you. But the water quality and the biological diversity can really improve. This is Seven Hill Cove. We are trying to learn from this site that is a hotspot for the sea level rise and also one of the most degraded areas in Boston Harbor. But with nature, we can fix it. So I'm very happy to be with you and tell you just a little tiny sliver of work that we can do and we are doing in Boston Harbor. Thank you so much.